So we had a service project in a different city. This was when I was living in Utrecht. When we were coming back from that service project, it was with a younger couple that had a little kid. And they said, hey, what if we drive you guys back to Utrecht? And we were like, okay, I guess. I mean, it's a half an hour. That's pretty far, but if you guys want to, you can. And so they drove us back, and we got into our apartment, and we were changing out of our service clothes into our proselyting clothes, and like back into our dresses and stuff, so we could go outside and do missionary work. And all of a sudden, at the time we had these brick phones, like the Nokias that don't have Wi-Fi on them. The screen just shows like a little bit of text. And so getting calls from international numbers was very strange. And all of a sudden we got a call from a +49 number, which is Germany. And we were like, what? Why is somebody from Germany calling us? And so we answered the phone, and it was actually the church headquarters in Frankfurt. And they called us, and they were like, hey, where are you guys right now? Please tell us you're inside of your apartment. We were like, yeah, we're inside of our apartment. And they just said, where is your apartment located? You know, they were asking us all these questions. We were like, please just tell us what is going on. Apparently, less than 20 minutes before that, there had been a major shooting in the downtown part of the city, that it was considered a terrorist attack, and that there were more shooters on the loose that the police were searching for. And so, you know, all the puzzle pieces started coming together. We figured out what was happening. There were helicopters in the sky, you know, all of the members were calling us, telling us information about it. And we eventually came to find out that if those members had not given us a ride back to the city, our bikes were actually at the station, at the central station, because we'd taken a train up there. If they hadn't given us a ride back, we would have arrived on our train the moment that shooting happened, and we would have been stuck in the city center because they built a barricade around it and the police weren't letting anybody out. We would have been stuck in that city center where the shooters were on the loose for the rest of that day. So we were actually put in a safe situation because those members decided, or just felt something, you know. Obviously, I believe it to be the influence of God that helped them know to drive us back to the city, and if it wasn't for them, we would have been in a very dangerous situation. Don't say something that isn't direct and expect them to understand the meaning. So I think in America, we tend to say a lot of things that, like, we're not actually saying the thing that we mean, but just based on our culture here, we understand what people mean. It's like kind of those unwritten messages, those subtitles essentially that we have. But in the Netherlands, they don't do that. They say what they mean. And I actually am in a Dutch class right now at BYU, and we had a reading assignment a couple days ago about the differences of cultures. And one of the biggest differences that was talked about in this book is that if somebody's offered coffee in the Netherlands and they're from a different country, and it's polite to say no the first time in their country, and they say no because that's what they're used to, the Dutch people will be like, okay, they don't want coffee, and they won't offer it again, even though in other countries they will, and then they'll say yes. It's like, if you say no, it means no. If you say yes, it means yes. Transportation system that took me a while to get used to, because we had these little cards, Ofe chip cards, and we would like check in and check out whenever we boarded a train or a bus or anything. We just used this little card. And actually the biggest thing that shocked me about traveling was the first time I looked at the bill. The first time I looked at it, I was like, oh, traveling here on public transportation is very expensive. But that's how they live in the Netherlands. Like, almost nobody has cars unless they have to travel big distances to cities that aren't really like on the map. Like if somebody's traveling from like Utrecht to Amsterdam or something, like big cities, they'll just take the train. But if they have to go to a farm town or something, then people will have a car. But people that just work in the cities, it's like public transportation, that's it. That's all that they use. And so that took a while to get used to. Architecture there is gorgeous, especially in the big cities. Okay, actually one thing that shocked me so much was that I could look out to the horizon and there was nothing in the way. There were no mountains, it was just completely flat. And sometimes, you know, there was a building or something in the way, but if I was out in the farmlands, I could look on for miles and miles and not see anything. It was just flat. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, and then like I was saying, the architecture is just so beautiful. In Amsterdam, you know, there are tons of pictures on Google of the rows of houses and the canals, the bridges, cobblestone streets. So that was really cool for me when I got there, to just see what I had seen on the internet all of my life as being like the dream vacation spot was actually right in front of me, and I was actually living there. I mean, it is a Western country, so there are definitely a lot of similarities. They're well off in the Netherlands. Okay, coolest fact that I ever learned about the Netherlands. I learned it on my very last day before I left. There was this elder that I was serving with, and he's like the smartest kid I know. He's fluent in 5 different languages. He's so cool. So he's obsessed with different languages. And he told me the day before I left that the Netherlands and the top half of Belgium, which was also in our mission, that area of the world right there is considered the most linguistically diverse area in the entire world. Because in that little space of land, which is smaller than Utah, probably about half the size of Utah, there are, I'm trying to remember the exact number, but it was around 40 to 50 different dialects that some of them are considered different languages, but just not widely used languages or official languages, and the other ones are dialects, but there were like 40 to 50 different languages and dialects spoken in that tiny piece of land. So the first thing that comes to my mind is just all the potato dishes that they have. There are so many, and one of my favorites is stompolt, but there's a specific kind. It's called hutspot, and it has obviously mashed potatoes like all other stompolts, and then it has carrots as well, like mashed carrots. And whenever my mom makes it, because my mom is Dutch, she puts bacon in it. So that's like probably my favorite. Honestly, the weirdest thing that I ever ate was pickled herring or haring. So yeah, that was pretty gross. It's just like a raw fish that's been put in like some kind of like vinegar, and then it has onions on it. You just have to like eat it like this. In terms of desserts, of course, there's the stroopwafels. It's like these 2 cookies that are waffle shaped with syrup in between them. And that's really, really good. And it was so awesome to be able to get those on market days on the weekends. When I was serving in a big city called Utrecht, they had huge markets on Fridays and Saturdays, and they had like probably 4 or 5 stroopwafel stands. And so my companion and I, we would always go to these stands and always get a stroopwafel. It was like our tradition. And then poffertjes are also really good. It's like pancakes, but they're just little balls. And they have powdered sugar on them. It's really good. One thing that I definitely adopted into my own life coming home was how good they are at using a calendar. Their calendars are very like advanced, and they use it to plan out their entire life. So basically, like if you approach somebody and you ask them, hey, what are you doing tonight? Like wanting to do something spontaneous, most of the time Dutch people will just say, actually, I don't have any time for like the next week, but next Tuesday at 4 p.m. That works for me if you want to do something. So they just plan things very well. And sometimes that can be annoying because they're not open to spontaneity. But at the same time, it's like if they make a commitment, they keep that commitment. They're incredibly helpful. When I was knocking doors or talking to people on the street, obviously they weren't very nice in a religious context, because the majority of them are atheists. But when I needed help with my suitcases on the train, whenever I was moving from city to city, there were always people there, Dutch people that would help me get my suitcases out of the train, or help me find where my next train was, or just where I needed to go. So they are very, very helpful people. I actually have this playlist on my Spotify, and it's Dutch rap and Dutch pop music. And it's very interesting to listen to before and after, because I also listened to Dutch music before my mission just to kind of get a sense of what it was. And before my mission, I purely heard the guttural sound, just the every other word. But listening to it now, after I've learned how to speak the language, I can actually, hear the meaning of the words and what they're saying. So that can be something annoying for somebody that's from outside of the country. Like, you just want to enjoy some music, and all of a sudden it's like, every 2 seconds. But now that I can actually speak the language and understand what they're saying, I really enjoy listening to their music. Well, honestly, the best 2 years is a perfect resource for doing this, because that one elder in that movie has the worst American accent, but it's basically like, Goede dag, meneer. Ik ben Zuster Clausen. Ik kom uit Utah. So basically it's just like using all the vowels. American. Okay, and I'll just say the same thing in the accent that I have now. It's still very American, but goedendag meneer. Ik ben Zuster Clausen. Ik kom uit Utah. Ik woon hier in Nederland al 18 maanden. So if I were to give recommendations of places that would be amazing to visit for anybody who goes to the Netherlands, I would definitely recommend going to Utrecht and seeing the city center there, because that's one of the biggest old city centers besides Amsterdam, but Amsterdam's kind of like dangerous to go in the city center. So Utrecht is a good middle ground there. And there's a beautiful castle in a city called Vleuten. And it's, what is it called? I can't remember, but it's just this giant castle really close to Utrecht. And you can go inside of it, and they just have it completely decorated like it was back when the castle was actually in use. And it's so pretty. I think I have the most pictures from that P-Day than any of the other ones. And the beach, there's a beach called Scheveningen. It's close to The Hague or Den Haag. And so that is just like a super touristy place, but it's a beautiful little seaside town. And the beach is absolutely gorgeous. The other place that I went to that like was a beach that was really fun is called Hoek van Holland, and they do boat tours out there. And the only reason I know this is because we accidentally got on a boat tour when we were actually trying to get on a boat going back to one of the cities we were serving in. We accidentally got on a boat that took us on like an 1.5 hour long tour of the harbor, but it was actually really cool. So that's at the Hoek of Holland or Hoek van Holland. Besides public transportation, the biggest form of transportation Dutch people use is bikes. And the majority of Dutch people that have bikes do not have the greatest quality of bikes. They typically find them on the side of the street, or they use them for 40-50 years at a time until they're broken down. But the majority of bikes that I saw were just totally broken down. But they still worked enough that people would be able to get around. And the infrastructure for biking there is very advanced, just because that is the main form of transportation for people. So there is the road where the cars are, and then there's like a curb, not really a sidewalk, but it looks like a sidewalk, and then the bike path, and it has 2 lanes on it, so you can go either way, and it's on both sides of the road because there are people going both directions on both sides of the road. And even in places where they don't have roads, they have bike paths, and they're very nicely paved and very nicely marked and painted up. When you have to go to a station or a store or a place where you're going to have to park your bike, I saw this especially in Utrecht. There are stalls where you can put your bike, and it's not just stalls like on the ground. They also have another level on top of just like the ground bike racks that you can pull it down, put your bike on top of it, and put it back up. So there are so many bikes there that they literally have to have like parking garages for bikes. No joke, it's parking garages for bikes at most of the stations, and it's so great. I miss the friends that I made the most. I actually had a really cool opportunity right after I came home from my mission. About a week and a half after I flew home and saw my parents for the first time, I got right back on a plane and flew back over there for Christmas. And the first week that I was there out of 3, I was just by myself, and I just got to go visit all of my friends that I have made, or several of them, not all of them, because there were so many. But I got to stay with a family that I was really close with their daughter, and just kind of ride the trains around and visit everybody. And yeah, I just loved the people that I met there so much, and the people that I had the opportunity of developing relationships with. There was a member of a branch that I was serving in, and I was having a really, really hard time. I actually struggled a lot with some mental issues while I was on my mission and while I was living there. And this member of the branch, she knew that I was struggling a lot. And she was actually not a counselor, but she did a lot of like drawing therapy at her home. And that was like her job, so she would ask people for money for that. And she actually invited my companion and I over there, and she did the drawing therapy thing for free, like, a bunch of different times while I was serving there, and it was so helpful. And she's just honestly the sweetest person ever, and the love and kindness that she showed us, as well as providing her professional help to me during that difficult time of my mission, it saved me from having to go home early. It kept me working, it kept me there. When I first got my mission call, when I first got that letter in the mail saying that I was going to be going to the Netherlands, my grandma and grandpa are actually from the Netherlands. They're from Rotterdam and Utrecht, two of the biggest cities. And when they were there as children, they were there during World War II. And that's why they immigrated to the United States, was because of that. And so when I got my mission call, they actually have both passed away now. But my mom, she's also Dutch. And I just remember that when I opened that letter and I read it off to my family, she just started screaming. She was like, that's where our family is from, and you're going to get to go serve there and meet the people that your grandma and grandpa grew up with, and the same culture that they lived in, that they passed on to their children, the same traditions. And when I got to the Netherlands, whenever I would talk about the fact that my grandma and grandpa were from there, everybody was just like, that is so cool, like, you're an American and your family is from here. And I saw that those tight family relationships people had with each other, even if people weren't married, the relationships they had with their parents, or that they had with their brothers and sisters, that they had with their friends. People are just so close to each other in the Netherlands, and they're so kind to one another. And so that was just a really amazing experience for me, to be able to experience why my grandma and grandpa and their children, why that family was so tight. I got to see the culture of why my family ended up being the way it is. Dus vandaag heb ik veel dingen gezegd van wat ik op zending heb ervaard. En tuurlijk was ik er voor een gelovige doel. Maar ik vond mijn ervaring gewoon met de Nederlandse mensen, als het gelovig gerelateerd was of niet, ik vond het echt een heel mooie ervaring. Wat ik echt van de Nederlandse mensen zo mooi vond, is dat ze zo behulpzaam zijn. En ik heb zoveel liefde van de Nederlandse mensen meegemaakt. Toen ik voor het eerst mijn oproep kreeg dat ik naar Nederland op zending zou gaan, was ik eigenlijk heel blij, omdat mijn oma en opa vanuit Nederland komen. En mijn moeder was opgegroeid in een Nederlandse huis. En mijn oma en opa, ze hebben daar Wereldoorlog 2 meegemaakt. En het was heel moeilijk voor hen. En ik kan het nog steeds merken aan het cultuur in Nederland, dat ze door een heel moeilijke periode in het verleden zijn geweest. In hun geschiedenis. En ze hebben zoveel liefde voor elkaar. En zoveel respect ook. Ze zijn heel respectvol mensen. En natuurlijk was ik er voor een gelovige doel. En ik ben heel dankbaar dat ik mensen mocht ontmoeten die ook in God geloven. Hoewel 85 van de mensen in Nederland atheïstisch zijn, vond ik het zo mooi om mensen te ontmoeten die in God geloven, ook die open daarvoor stonden. En mijn tijd in Nederland was echt het waard. En ik kwam om zoveel van de Nederlanders te houden. En nog steeds is mijn Nederlands niet perfect, maar de Nederlanders hadden echt zoveel geduld met mij. Hoewel ik niet perfect Nederlands kon spreken, konden ze me nog steeds begrijpen. En ze probeerden hun best om mij te begrijpen. Dus daarvoor ben ik heel erg dankbaar. En ik ben heel erg dankbaar voor de Nederlandse mensen. En ik hou van ze zoveel. Dus dat wilde ik met jullie delen.